MSW student here, and I want to say a special welcome to our panelists. I should say welcome back because you all have completed the program here. So I'm going to have you go around and introduce yourself and the year you graduated and a little synopsis about what you are involved in currently in the field. So go right ahead, start.
Okay, my name is Drena Fagen, and I graduated from NYU Social Work in 2006. And prior to that, I graduated from Pratt Institute with my art therapy degree in 2001. And I'm currently in private practice in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. It's a group practice with 5 other creative arts therapists.
Hi, I'm Valerie Simon. I am MSW class of 1997, so I looked at that. Before that, I was actually a BFA at NYU Film School. And I have a private practice not too far from here in Union Square. And I specialize in psychodrama. I'm a psychodramatist. And I also I have a project called The Inner Stage where I work with performers, helping to remove blocks to their spontaneity and creativity.
Hi everyone, I'm Marygrace Berberian. I'm an art therapist. I graduated from social work school in 2002. Prior to that, I got my art therapy degree from NYU in 1996. I'm the program coordinator for the graduate art therapy program here at NYU, and we just did a 2-year study looking at art therapy's impact on school children, and I have a private practice in Park Slope.
Hi, I'm Susan Feiner. I'm a music therapist. I'm here on the faculty at NYU in the music therapy graduate program there. I'm the clinical coordinator of internships, administrative, teach a number of classes. A little free time I have left. I have a very small private practice and supervision. I'm glad you wrote down the year I got my degree, 1989 from you. I was originally, before that I was had been trained as a music therapist, and I graduated in 1981. So I worked in a variety of settings. And teaching job is an intro job, and I love it so much.
Thank you. Welcome again. So reflecting back on your career and your entrance into the career as a student at NYU Silver, did you know what you wanted to get into? Did you know that it was a career in creative arts for you? Anyone can take that.
Well, I did, because I had my art therapy degree first. So that was clear. And the reason that I chose to go to social work school was at the time all of the mental health professions in New York State were not licensed. And art therapy was not as recognized as it is now. And so it seemed like a good idea to get an additional degree that would give me some credibility and the ability to develop programming if I was interested in doing that, which I was. So I went into social work school always with my art therapist hat on. And often when I would be reading all the social work literature, I'd be writing in the side like what I would do as an art therapist for this particular thing. So all of my books are like jotted, filled with notes about art therapy in them. So I was always integrating them, couldn't help myself.
Yeah, and I think for me, I got a film degree and worked in the film industry for a bit. Didn't like the business of the film industry, and came back on my MSW. And then when I found psychodrama, it just made perfect sense because it used kind of both the creative background and the clinical background that I learned here. So I was able to blend the two. But I think when I came into my MSW, I started working with children, and I love play therapy. There's kind of a creativity in that. I mean, there's creativity in all the work we do, but that I liked. And so when I found psychodrama, it kind of made sense, and I transitioned to working with adults.
I pursued the MSW program similar to Drena's inclinations. I was working in a school setting under a grant initiative, and my grant was about to end. And the only way that I can continue the work is getting a social work license. In the interim, 2001 happened, and art therapy was greatly sought out as a modality for healing in a lot of communities that were being underserved in terms of crisis intervention. So I have been employed as an art therapist, and I feel that the MSW has given like a lot of power to the caboose. It really has been able to launch me forward, but continuing on to do a lot of creative restoration for people
also had my music therapy degree before coming here for MSW. I was working and created a music therapy program at the Jewish Board and Children's Services in their Child Development Center for their therapeutic nursery. So I was surrounded by phenomenal social workers and clinicians. And I had the dream at that point that if I got this degree, I could create a center that would provide the same sort of services for kids after they were older and out in preschool settings. But I got distracted in another way. But I went into the social work degree to broaden my training and deepen it in verbal therapy. I already took a lot of training in music therapy and play therapy. And I wanted to choose what I was choosing based upon what would be best for my client rather than what I was limited to do. Since then, I've integrated with both. But similarly to Drena, when I wanted further training, there was really not much more opportunity. As much as there is now in the creative arts therapies, I really had to get a doctorate. There's quite long, so which is really fun and strange.
So for us as students here, what are the most surprising things about your work? Whether it be good, whether it be bad, what is a typical day like for you within the field? Can you speak to that? Again, this is like popcorn style, so anyone is like popcorn.
I guess what is always very rewarding or enlightening to me is that I continually see growth in the clients that I'm serving because they're engaging in the creative process. So I always feel like there's an opportunity for birthing in the sessions that we share. And so many of us find ourselves in positions where we're focusing so much on pathology. I know as creative arts therapists, we focus a lot on strengths and really serve to empower clients by the creative process. So for me, that's always very rewarding. No matter how dreary the circumstances may be, it's always kind of an uplifting moment in my day.
And I have a private practice, as I said, and I work, psychodrama is used a lot in the addictions field. So I work with a lot of people in recovery and also dealing with trauma. It really helps get trauma up and out of the body. And just for all what we all do, with brain scans, they really see now that trauma is healed more effectively with creative arts therapies than with traditional talk therapy. It kind of engages the limbic system, and then our frontal cortex, which shuts down when we're in a trauma state, it kind of gets it working again in a more rational thinking. So it really helps integrate things better in talk therapy. So I do a lot of work with trauma and addictions in my private practice, and I also am a trainer in psychodrama, so I'm kind of taking my show on the road a little bit and, training different places. And I go down to a place down in Tennessee once in a while, a place called On-Site Workshops, where they do intensives, like 4-day intensive therapy with people who want to get like a year's worth of therapy in 4 days. So I do experimental therapy.
On a similar note, I think that one of the surprises, that's the question I heard in my day is, with the social work training, it's easy to just do talk therapy. It's easy to just sort of settle into that. And I find myself, even after all these years, having to remind myself of the power of the art making and really trust it and say to myself, I've got to bring the art in. If I bring the art in now, it's going to work. Something's going to happen. I include this whole little chat I do with myself. And then it does. It really does. And then I think the surprise is that I continue to be surprised. I continue to be impressed and surprised and moved and by the power of what happens when I stop talking and they stop talking.
I can certainly say that everything everyone has said has certainly applies to my work. I think what is most exciting to me about the integration of social work and creative arts therapies is how the potential that is realized in creativity, which you all said. And the other piece is that it makes it a journey with rather than being an authority for. I think engaging in people's creativity engages in their resources, which is why we often deal with strengths and weaknesses of pathology. And by joining in the creative process with them, by doing the arts with them, then we create a different level of relatedness than I know my experience in my training, we sit and face to face with our clients, where we're the authority. And of course, we can't take that role as talk therapists, but it's much easier. But when you engage in the creative process with a client, the field is I'm an expert still, I have a lot to offer about that role, but with that comes an empowerment and a sense of well-being and a way to sit with emotions rather than just say them, then you can sit and resonate with them and feel with them and then be able to move on. So I think most exciting to me is the integration and the different roles. I was very surprised as a music therapist first, becoming a talk therapist. Valerie, and I tried not to use music therapy because I really wanted to get trained both in art therapy and verbal therapy. I couldn't, it was too slow, it felt like malpractice sometimes, not to bring in the creative arts to access that ability that everyone has with it.
I know that you, Valerie, you were mentioning about populations with trauma and addictions. Are there other populations? Because I'm thinking within the geriatric population, there's a big budding field within creative arts. And Dr. Jean Cohen from, I don't know if you're familiar with her work from at Georgetown University, and seeing how this helps seniors in later life pretty much cope with the losses and really find the self. So I want to know, like, from your experience, what populations are there out there that are growing, that are emerging for us entering the field now?
I think for music therapy, we pretty much can apply ourselves to just about every population. We work in hospitals, we work with pregnant at-risk mothers, we work with preemies. Because it's a oral process, we can have access to those people who are shutting out the world. So we work in a real variety. It's hard to say if there's been one population better than the others, but we work in hospitals, we work with children who are about to go into procedures, and instead of having to be anesthetized, they can be involved in music toning and drum and then not have to have medication. We work with geriatrics, definitely. Everyone knows what was the film, which is blanking out of my head, but we all know about how music can access immediately and access a whole important time in one's history and bring out a lot of information. We work in jails, we work in psychiatric settings, we work with the normal neurotic, we work with trauma, and I've been involved in some trauma work. It's very, very important with the creative arts therapies we do. Work in schools, community centers, a big push. I don't know if it's the same in the other creative arts as community music therapy work right now. We have to integrate people with special needs with the population at large by becoming recording artists or community centers that integrate those with special needs.
I think it's an interesting question with the emerging populations, because I would say pretty much the same thing as you. Like, it can be used in a diverse array, but more interestingly is I think that the emerging population is the general population. That it's becoming so much more known. Like less, it happens less often now when I go to a party, someone says, "What's that?" Whereas when I entered the field, that was always the question. So, I mean, that in itself feels like the emergence is that it's becoming kind of known, and that's astounding. And, you know, the classes here on creative arts therapy at social school fill up in an instant. So there's such a desire and an interest, and that's, you know, spreading through mental health, it's spreading through the general population. I think it's partly why our practice does so well, is because people are not averse to something that seems like it makes a lot of sense, you know, even if it's not what was normally recommended.
Yeah, I mean, psychodrama, well, first of all, the name always freaks people out. but when it was created, Jacob Arena was a psychiatrist in Vienna back in the 20s. And, you know, psychoanalysis was the you know, in its heyday then. And so psychodrama, the name didn't seem as bizarre as it does today. But he really wanted it everywhere. It sort of has ended up in the mental health field, and he was a psychiatrist and brought it to the United States. But he used it in theaters, he really wanted it in business, he wanted it used with families. He just, you know, wanted it to help heal everybody everywhere, not, you know, pigeonholed in the mental health world. So I'm like excited taking it out of the mental health work when I work with performers and just, you know, lots of people in the field doing different things, because, you know, I think we're all looking for alternative routes to healing nowadays.
I guess I can answer that by saying a large focus of my work has been in the public school systems. And so the referrals usually come in September with the really acting out boys, the aggressive boys. And then around January, we get the really depressed or very isolated girls. And after the first year of having art therapy services in the school, the teachers themselves wanted art therapy. So we started art therapy for the teachers. I guess we would call them the more of the normal neurotic types. And so we'd have lunchtime art therapy groups where the public school teachers themselves would bring their bag lunch and come to the art therapy room and do art therapy. And I think when we think about the emerging population, if you can go from the really aggressive boys to the more isolated, depressed girls to the expected to be high-functioning teachers, I think that pretty much sums it up in terms of who we can potentially serve on the spectrum of people.
So I know that all of you have the MSW and our license. So one of the questions here is where do you go to for supervision? But I'm thinking in terms of there was a time when it wasn't as recognized as it is today. And for you guys who were doing this a long time ago, what was supervision like then as compared to now? And who do you go to for supervision? I'm sure it's amongst your peers, other social workers, but just throwing it out there, Chief.
In psychodrama, our training, you become a certified practitioner, you have to collect, you're part of an experiential training group, you learn by doing it. And you do about 780 hours. It's a long process. And then there's a big exam, kind of like taking the comps. And you have to be observed running a psychodrama group, that kind of thing. And then you have a supervisor along the way. And then there's where I am now, I'm a practitioner and trainer, and then I will become a trainer, educator, and practitioner. All these letters, we love that in this field, and I call them. So I always have a supervisor and always have somebody to meet with, and now when I run workshops, I always run things by with her. What do you think about this, or do you have any ideas about that? And then processing it afterwards. So I've never been on my own in the field. I've always, but we have to have a certain amount of hours for the certification.
When I first started in the field and graduated, there were very few music therapists who could supervise me, and I think that's one reason I went and got the social work degree. So over the years, though, the nice thing is that I've been supervised by social workers, I've been supervised by psychiatrists, I've been supervised by psychologists, I've been supervised by other music therapists. And I think it freed me kind of from desperation to go wherever I could find what I wanted. I did advanced trainings in other areas as well, and was always supervised. So I really encourage that. Now, supervision is much more available because there are so many more of us in the creative arts therapies. But as far as getting trained as a music therapist and being licensed, one must go through a program, and I think that's the same for most of our fields, where you take you meet the state education department's basic requirements for licensure. And so that's where you get your basic training. And then after you graduate, you have to have supervised training for another year, and then continuing, you have to continue being supervised and training in order to keep your certification. So supervision becomes kind of a way of life. I've become very passionate about that area, presented and published on supervision. I think it's such an amazing experience that it's kind of bit me in my head.
I think that there's specific supervision for the creative arts therapy is unique to each discipline, and it's very clearly outlined by the state standards. For my social work training, I have a particular interest in Jungian analysis, and I found a licensed clinical social worker who could provide me with supervision, who was also a Jungian panelist, who was also a sound play practitioner. So I was able to do intensive sound play training and be able to rely on my supervisor for both accreditation. So that's something that people have interest in, trying to find those kinds of collaborations and supervise.
Yeah, there's a national standard for art therapy, so there's credentials and hours for the national standard, and then then if you're licensed, then there's a kind of a different, slightly different set of standards to get the license. And if you're a social worker, then there's also quite stringent requirements in terms of the license. And so frankly, at this point, I do find it a little restrictive because as I pursue my higher, my work towards my R, my LCSW, it's very, very hard for me to find someone at that level who has an integration of the things that I'm looking for, the having the creative arts and being a skilled social work clinician. So, as more of us sort of combine this, there'll be more of us doing that, but it is tricky and sometimes disappointing to not be able to find both of those. Like sometimes I fantasize in the world where money is no object that I have a creative arts therapy supervisor and I have my clinical social work supervisor because I can't find that person in one that's quite exactly right. So, you find other ways, peer groups and people you hire and work with, and actually teaching, and the students actually, amazingly enough, have a lot of enriching perspective on the work.
So I want to open it up to the audience to ask any questions that you've been thinking about as our panelists speak and what you would like to ask them in terms of the field and that comes up for you.
So this is probably a dry question, but I think a necessary one for some of us. As we're about to get our MSWs, we're interested in practicing expressive therapies, and we really just don't know what to do. It would be lovely to get a second master's, but right now it's not the most realistic thing. So for those of us that are interested in either becoming licensed clinical art therapists and or being able to practice it in some capacity, what would your advice be?
Well, I actually went online to find out the answer. I was a little worried you were going to ask this question. And the National Board Certification for becoming an art therapist, an ATR, which is a registered art therapist, and then a board certified registered art therapist. They've changed the rules recently, and I'm disappointed in the way the rules have changed. You used to be able to do a program, you could do like 1 year in school, and that was like alternate track C. Well, they've eliminated that, and you have to have a second master's. And I think it was not a platform, but it's really not a great idea because there are so many passionate mental health workers in other disciplines who could. It would be great to have more of you signed up as registered art therapists. So that's the bad answer. But the good answer is in the state of New York, as a clinical social worker, it's within your scope of practice to do art therapy. Ethically and responsibly, you have to make sure you're getting training to do that. So you can't call yourself an art therapist, but you can use expressive therapies in your practice well within the scope of clinical social work. But again, you have to be responsible about finding training. And there's a variety of resources. You probably do trainings. We do trainings. Taking courses in school. The new school offers a certificate program, which doesn't get you much really, other than it gives you more training. And there's lots of drama therapy, independent drama therapy organizations that do trainings. I'm not aware of that many art therapy. Maybe you know.
Yeah,
I
actually must have been thinking along the same lines because I was like,
okay,
what
I
can we
think
do?
we don't have the answer to this question.
What can we do to help? Okay, so 2 things that might be of interest for the group is that Pratt is running a spring Institute of Creative Arts Therapy, which you can sign up for. There's different modules that's happening May 20th to May 22nd, and that just came out. And then there's also an expressive therapy summit that happens every year in November in Times Square. And you can sign up as a volunteer. It can be a little costly, but you can sign up as a volunteer and you can get to go for part of it for either no or low cost. So that's another option for you. So I'll pass those around for those who want to jot down the information.
Yeah, the summit is great. It's new. It's only like in its 4th year, I think, and it's astounding. Creative arts therapy, all the expressive therapists come from all over the place, and it's chock full. That would be great. If you did that every year, and you went to everything you could, and actually compared to the tuition here, it's not expensive at all.
Right. And just to be careful too, in New York State, because of the licensing, you just have to be really clear about saying what you're doing as, or I know for the art therapy professions, as a clinical social worker without the LCAP licensing, you really can't advertise yourself as doing art therapy. Licensing issues. So you can talk about the creative arts therapy practices and expressive therapy practices. In New York State, you're restricted to say that you're doing art therapy without the LCAP licensing.
Another recommendation I have is to go into therapy and art therapy yourself and get your own personal experience in it, which would be a way to enter and really learn about it, and then take pieces of that that you can integrate into the other things.
That's a great answer.
Also, really to just, I would recommend to just explore, you're just finishing your MSW, you don't have to dive into the next training. I mean, my process, I took a few years and I wasn't sure if I was going to do child analytic training or then I found psychodrama. And I went through this going back and forth, got into a child analytic program, and then kept being drawn towards psychodrama and went to the conference, I think, and took workshops, that kind of thing, and then finally made a decision. But it was a good process. It's uncomfortable when you don't know what the answer is yet, but I think looking back on it now, in hindsight, I'm glad that it took some time to get there.
I'm going through the same thing. Institute, which way do I go?
Right, but dance movement therapy and drama therapy both have alternate tracks, and you may actually be able to get the license through those tracks. And since that's not exactly what I
It's
do,
not possible in music.
it's not in music and it's not in art, but maybe in dance and drama. You can definitely get your national registration in drama therapy and dance therapy. The 92nd Street Y has a program, pretty intensive focus on dance movement therapy. And so again, whether you're working towards the credential or you're just wanting to be getting really good at what you're doing so that you're practicing responsibly within social work, but those are certainly options. You can also get your PhD at Leslie in expressive therapies, which would be fun.
I really encourage any kind of creative arts therapies exploration for people just graduating. Just really get in touch with the creative process yourself so that you can use whatever you're probably, any of you interested in this probably have some history in the creative arts. So I recommend that it will change all your practice, even if you can't call yourself that. I remember when I started improvising, I was a classical musician and my classical playing. It was so much better once I became an improviser. We tapped into a whole other part of it. So don't give up with your resources on what you're doing. Explore them in whatever way. Trust the process.
Any more questions from the audience?
What are some thoughts you might have about creating creative programming when it's completely, like, no one else is really involved in it and they're just telling you, come up with something creative? Basically in context, so this year, I'm a first year and my placement was at a teen theater improv program, so it was sociodrama. And then because I've been learning social work, so they gave me the option to start a group, and I just came up with scripts and lyrics, and it was very ad hoc. I didn't know what I was doing, and they were sort of come up with something, And now my second year, I'm going to be working with traffic women who don't speak English really, so creative art else. So I have different interests with different kinds of creative art. And they're saying, I just heard back and they're saying that I can probably come up with different things. I mean, it's always so vague like that. So, I mean, I'm thinking about what it's like to become a therapist, but even just starting out as a student, like, where can I get the support? Like, how can I navigate it? So it's like, I don't know, like, this, just maybe.
Well, if I could speak on it, that kind of thing raises flags for me so quickly. It's because, especially when it's the embodied work, like psychodrama or drama therapy or anything where someone's going to be really experiencing some kind of emotional response, and it's very many agencies are very cavalier about it, like, oh, we'll just do some kind of art group with those people, or integrate some kind of arts in that, and it's worrisome because there's usually trauma, there's usually some kind of, like, it's dangerous. Like, it's dangerous to go there without knowing how to manage all the feelings and things that could come up in that. And so maybe part of navigating that is asking the person who's asked you to do it what the expectations are about that, and being clear that there are limitations in terms of what you can do with the training that you have. I think that's really the responsible way. And then to seek out some resources. Maybe you get a supervisor for that project. Maybe you get, maybe you get your agency to support you to have, like someone like us or someone who's out in the field who can be your mentor for that project so that you're going to be able to do it effectively and handle it in a way that's going to serve your clients best, because that's ultimately the goal. Because it actually can hurt people. Like if you don't know what you're doing, it can move really fast into emotional territory that then, people never come back. When people never come back, you know something has happened. So that's my thoughts. Get some support, like actual concrete handle.
Here in the social work school as well, I mean, I think someone over here is overseeing your internship. I know I was pretty closely watching and get engaged here in those resources. With flags on a pole.
I know. Can you see all our flags? We all live.
Very nice.
The other thing is, I thought it might be helpful to sign up for a creative arts therapy class here, but I haven't been able to find, like, I can see that it's available, but I don't see any that are happening.
There's one next fall.
In the fall, is it all?
It's already filled.
Yeah. There's an art therapy class where just extended the enrollment, so you might, there was space this afternoon in the art therapy class. It's Steinhardt.
But we can cross register.
There's also probably each of the projects. There's music therapy elective for non-majors.
There's a drama therapy elective for non-majors also.
Right, that's on Monday nights,
I don't know what that
offered
was.
every semester. Register quickly.
So who just joined us is Natalie Lleras, am I pronouncing it right?
I'm so sorry.
Yes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let you introduce yourself
Okay.
and tell us a little bit about what you're doing in the field,
Okay.
and we have excuse. It is okay.
Never underestimate the city's ability to start a protest at 5 o'clock, so I apologize. I was in the city about 2 hours ago. So what do? I'm a social worker at a residential high school for adolescent boys 13 to 21. You're the only one in the 5 boroughs. The rest are usually upstate, kind of in the woods. So we have a unique opportunity to help students classified actually as emotionally disturbed. So we work with them with a lot of psychiatric disorders, a lot of mental retardation, kind of a mix of that spectrum. But they're very interesting and funny. They do a lot of things. So my work with them is a lot of milieu stuff, but definitely psychoeducation groups. We have a lot of opportunity to be very creative. That's my background, is just doing the psychoeducation groups, finding whichever way you can to kind of reach out to them specifically. Also, I work with adults, so that's...
So I'm going to continue to collect questions from the audience. That's where we were at. So anyone else?
What if you were not such an artist, but you had interest of, eventually pursuing art therapy? I know like the program required a portfolio of your work and everything. So, what can you recommend for someone in that position who wants to begin exploring,
We just completed our admissions process, so I guess I can speak to that. Portfolio is important because we're looking for students who have adequate competency in a range of art materials. So if a client comes to me and they say, I really want to be able to execute this piece of art, I have this image in my mind, can you help me? Can you usher me into the process? So having an understanding of basic technique is critical for the profession. So we encourage students who may want to gain more proficiency. You can take classes in the Art Student League. But I guess parallel to that requirement is just a real intense appreciation for the creative process. Like, can you really experience, or have you had the experience of knowing and being gratified by what it is to push clay between your fingers and kind of have that release and to be able to engage in that kind of flow experience? So I think that they're both equally important in my mind. And if you are looking to enhance your skill, there's lots of places in this mecca so the appreciation and the skill can go hand in hand.
That was definitely her question. Yeah. You have to audition for music therapy, don't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
you have to be a musician.
Yeah.
You really
And you-
have to be able to have music be a second language.
And I think you have to audition for drama therapy. I mean, you're psychodrama. I keep speaking for drama therapy like I do it, but there's no one here, so I keep. Yeah.
You don't have to do that for psychodrama. And I mean, I can just speak personally, it's helped me so much with my own spontaneity, just the method itself. Like, you know, I've taught a class at another institution, probably because of the training I was getting personally in psychodrama, like something I never thought I would do. You know, so every discipline has a different track to it, but psychodrama, you don't need to have a drama background. It's not like only used with actors or something. I'm doing something specific, but I use the techniques in my private practice with lots of different people.
So Natalie, I'm sorry.
All these spoke of music, psychodrama, movement. I was wondering, the literary arts, are they all included or incorporated in creative arts therapy?
Great question. It's actually in poetry therapy, and it's covered with the New York State license. I myself have not met a poetry therapist yet, but I'm looking forward to one day. Yeah, so it's a field, but it's not it's a master's degree.
It's mostly kind of a certificate program or more extensive training, and a lot of the creative arts therapists do have advanced training in poetry therapy, so it's definitely something that's within your reach. Yeah, it is covered, as Drena was saying, it's covered by state licensing, and it's part of the Expressive Therapy Summit, and I think it's also might be covered by the Pratt Expo as well.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I use lots of word and language kind of stuff in my work. Any creative thing that's gonna do the job.
And there's a lot of, I think there's a Poetry Therapy Association, I think I recently came across that, so you can search, and it's actually very widely networked, so. I think that there's-
Yeah, I mean, I can adapt psychodrama technique. You know, sometimes you do with someone sitting in a chair, talk to your parent or talk to you as a 4-year-old or something like that, or talk to an emotion, talk to your fear. We do lots of strange things like that in psychodrama, but you can also do it with somebody who maybe feels uncomfortable verbally talking. Write a letter to your inner child, write a letter to yourself when you were getting divorced, or, you know, whatever. So we definitely use writing.
It's integrated in all the creative arts, so it's a nice way, particularly those of you who've asked about how to get involved in the creative arts therapies and aren't in a position to get into creative.
I'm fortunate enough to work for a drama therapy organization. I get to work with a drama therapist. And I know that there's a lot of interns from the drama therapy department that do their internship at Enact. I was just wondering if because I do want to go into like I'm not sure if I want to get my LCAT or my RDT. I was just wondering, would the hours that have been able to work with drama therapists, would those count towards my RDT? Or do I have to, like once I start getting training as a drama therapist, would then those hours count? Is that too much of a technical question?
I think it just has to be postgraduate, so you wouldn't be able to count an internship. I believe that the answer would be post-grad hours.
Are you talking about you're talking about
Registered.
Becoming a registered drama therapist.
on the alternative path, right? And you're getting your MSW?
I'm getting my MSW.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
getting my MSW.
Yeah, no, it'd have to be after, like once your degree is conferred, you can start counting the hours after.
Oh, okay, so it's after that.
I have another idea in reference to some of the other questions I realized. Those of you who are working in places where there are creative arts therapists, see if you can work with them if you're interested in this, because the more the better. and that might be another way to get experience and figure out how to live. And if ever you're in a position where you could put a program together, so you I'd say.
You play nice.
We don't have that hierarchy. That's some of the other professions.
So I wanted to ask Natalie, I wanted to give you the opportunity to kind of like, I just wanted to have you rest a little bit, but to kind of go back to what a typical day looks like for you within your program and what advice you would give to the students here currently in the program.
I kind of feel in a strange position to do that because I have a feeling I was the most recent to graduate. So I might be the last person here to listen to about certain things like that. But so a typical day. Obviously they are in school technically, so they have a high school day. Throughout the day, we're kind of working with them on little things. They have our classes. They have a lot of creative opportunities. Following, it would be the school day that they would kind of see me. Groups would be geared toward the class that was there, depending on the levels they walked in with. And then we'd be able to hold groups in the early afternoon, and I leave probably around 5 o'clock. It's very, very busy. They're very entertaining. For the most part, I'll check the results depending on who's losing it. That's really an average day. A lot of psychiatric stuff, but very interesting. I love it. What I would offer to you guys, the professors here are outstanding. I find a lot of things that they told me throughout my experience, I think I'm still good to say now. I remember one professor reminding us that you won't really be a therapist for 10 years because you can't. You kind of have to be in it, you have to experience it. And I had the benefit of having really good internships that kind of allowed me to be creative, which I don't know, but is something everyone kind of gets a chance to do. You know, there is always going to be the paper shelf in the internships. But look for what you need out of your internship. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Find the professors that you kind of find yourself aligning with, because it could be what they're telling you that could really be predicting the population you'll be best for, or the population you'll find to be your calling. Listen to your gut, that's pretty obvious. But know that you're definitely prepared for your LMSW test. Absolutely. And that I walked out of here, I think, with a certain confidence that I don't find in a lot of other graduates, depending on the college that they did come from. I did. I was prepared to believe I was good at this, that I was ready for this, and that I was a social worker. And like I said, I hope one day you'll find this experience to be the same. I feel very well prepared. Right now I'm doing a lot of program development that I didn't think I would have the opportunity to do as a social worker. You know, a lot of people want to cookie cutter what it is you're supposed to be doing. But if you give yourself the opportunity and you don't give up and you're very clear about the position that you want, you can find it.
So I think one thing that I would sit in here, I mean, especially the psychodrama piece of it, because of the nature of the work, it's so expressive, so creative. What does self-care look like for you guys? Like,
not enough. But no, working on it. What does self-care look like for me? Exercise. I mean, for me, psychodrama, and again, I love it. Like I was saying, it really helps people get trauma out. But as a practitioner of it, you know, sometimes when I run a group with, you know, I've done work at inpatient addiction rehab facilities where there's just severe trauma. And after I run a group, and there can be a little bit of a hands-on experience with psychodrama, obviously with people's permission. So I really pick up the energy of the trauma, and, you know, and so I sometimes will be feeling like I'm bouncing around a little bit myself, and exercise is really, really important for me. I'm on my iPod a lot, leaving it at the office. Even before I became a psychodramatist, somehow, gratefully, when I first got my MSW and I was working full-time social work jobs, I started out working with children, outpatient psychiatry at hospitals. I left it at the office. I had to sort of compartmentalize it. Not, if there were a big crisis, I brought it home with me, unfortunately. But for the most part, I just leave it there. And that helps me. Everyone's different, but that, and just having your life, you know, getting a massage, just really doing some self-care, taking a bath, you know, whatever it is. Those are the things I do.
Well, this is a topic near and dear to my heart. In my private practice, I actually offer art therapy burnout prevention groups for social workers and mental health professionals. It's the group I wish someone were running for me. But since they're not, I have vicarious self-care through my groups. Truly, I do. I think, and so I do a lot of presentations on this, and a lot of the research in the last couple of years really talks about building community. So not isolating yourself and not taking the responsibility for self-care all on yourself. The same kinds of advice we would give to our clients who are overwhelmed by their life or traumatized in the world is for them to reconnect with people, connect with people who understand and validate your experiences. So I think for me, that's what I certainly try to do. And then as a creative arts therapist, making the art, actually, I like to play with the word exercise, and I do like to exercise as well, but then to switch it and also say to exorcise. So to like use the art to like exercise the sort of whatever the demons are or whatever, because you carry so much with you at the end of the day. And if you even just like make something before you go out the door to leave it in the office, it's very, very helpful. It's never really enough, but it's really helpful.
I think practicing what you preach is really important for those of you who don't have the luxury of going to one of Drena's groups. Just finding creativity in the mundane, and if you're cooking, really be excited about what you're creating, and if you're walking to the subway, give yourself a little rhythm. Just try to find moments where you can infuse creativity, because it really does. It's good for blood pressure, it's good for the spirit, it's so healthy on so many levels. So those opportunities when you can really find creative moments in your day would be very restorative. You can't get the juice.
Certainly, everyone has said everything that I would say. I would say have a peer group. It doesn't matter what you do, but to have a peer group to explore together and to process together. I get a lot of graduates from our program who've been out a few years and then feel pretty isolated. We talk about it real often. The job's hard, and when groups continue working together, I recommend you as students find a group of other students and put together some kind of support network for yourselves, and have fun taking turns exploring. Don't be the expert, exploring the different ways of creativity. But be part of the group. I think that's really important. Coming out of 9/11, I was involved with work with caregivers. It was a project that one with Israel Hospital. We actually have a book out on caring for the caregiver. Anyone wants, you might be listed in there, but that was a big project. How do you carry all those people and not have it eat you up inside? Not to give up the art that we love, whatever kind of art it is, be it the art of flowers or art of singing in the shower or how to set up furniture, whatever it is, that creative process is going to be very healing.
That actually reminds me, I sometimes feel like the work with particularly traumatized clients is about teaching them how to play again. And so, like, if we just put it on that level, like, we're just find ways to play. Just find ways to play and to laugh, and that'll heal a lot of things. Laughing yoga is really big these days. I haven't tried it myself. Have you tried it?
No.
Laughing is very
All I can say is that I know that for me, even now, it's a struggle, but it's kind of maintaining your personal boundaries. Saying that, you know, a lot of times my issue is not so much the kids. I have the staff with their feelings, bringing them to me, and being able to manage how I hold up my boundaries so that I can do my work. Because having personal boundaries doesn't make you any less therapeutic. It actually, I think, makes you more so because you're holding them to standards. So for me, it's always reminding myself, I really want to have the principal in my office and make you feel better, but that's not really best for him and for me. So kind of keeping it where it needs to be so that I don't so quickly get to the point where I'm like, you know, running around outside. You know, it's just when you get to that point where you kind of to know that your past, being able to kind of come down and it happens to us all. Just being really, reminding yourself that exposing everything of yourself is not really what we always need to do.
And that's where supervision is so important.
Yes.
And understanding what's up and which ones are
And take vacations.
I know Mary Grace, you had spoken about some professional affiliations that are the professional bodies and organizations. And I just want to get from you, what are the organizations that are out there currently that we can get connected to, websites we can go on to gather more information about this field?
I guess I'll start on this end. Can go to, for music therapy, there's the American Music Therapy Association that has a lot of information about the field. Wish there was a book by Shelley Hatch, and I can actually get it for you if you want, that talks about the use of music for oneself. And it's really creative arts therapies. There's a Voices journal on music therapy that's online, that's an e-journal, and anyone can have access to it. As far as, so American Music Therapy Association, we've already talked about the Expressive Arts Therapy Association, NCATA, National Creative Arts Therapy Association. Those are just some places to start. You have right here at NYU, the North Robbins Music Therapy Center, where you can go and there's wonderful films and things to do. There's some people volunteer to videotape them just to watch the music therapy process over time with kids, adults with variety of issues. So those are a few resources.
Yeah, I'll pass this around. These are some websites and links from some expressive therapies organizations. Or maybe we can copies.
In terms of psychodrama, there's the American Society for Group Psychotherapy and Psychodrama. And if you're interested in finding out about the certification process, I believe, I hope I'm right, the website is psychodramacertification.org. But if that's incorrect, if you Google it, you can certainly find it.
Any final thoughts from the audience, any final questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to ask the panelists to just pretty much give out whatever comes to your spirit to tell us. Any advice, closing remarks, words of encouragement that you might have, you each have. Confidence to do so.
Just say I'm so excited to see a group of you here interested in the creative arts. Just want to, I've already said this before, just to encourage you to keep following your push and explore and find what works for you. And trust yourself and get involved in the art. I just started playing cello 3 years ago. New instrument, getting involved, starting a new arts is very healing and opens up. I think so. I'm not youngsters and starting something new like that. Keep starting things new. It's more.
I think if you consider what brought you to this profession, you've come to a profession of healing for some reason, and just, as we've spoken, be open to all the alternative methods of healing. You've been healing since the start of civilization, lots of different ways, and just be open to the possibilities of they might be part of your repertoire. Some other tools in your toolbox.
And first of all, for all of you that are graduating, congratulations. I know we all know up here how much work it takes to get your master's in social work here. I'll just share, for me, when I was studying for this exam I had to take for psychodrama, I read a biography of Jacob Moreno, who created psychodrama. And he did lots of different things. He worked with kids, he worked with prostitutes in kind of a social work way, which no one was doing in Vienna in the 1920s, or 1910s actually. He worked with theater, he did all of these different things, and then it all eventually kind of came together and he created this new method. And I had a lot of parallels. I was like, wow, I worked with kids, I used to work in the film industry, and it really validated that everything I did then kind of made sense. And you don't know it when you're going through it, but it will all kind of come together at some point in your career. or at least, it did for me, and I think a lot of people I know too. So just, you have to kind of go through it and explore, like everyone was saying, and have faith that, there's a path. It doesn't feel like it sometimes when you're kind of, it doesn't feel like you can see anything ahead of you and you're just starting out, but you will have a path and it will all make sense. So just keep going with it. And good luck.
One more music therapy resource I want to mention that you don't have to have a degree in to use, and that's the Institute for Music and Imagery. Helen Bonny created this way using imagery as a way to process this work. We don't have time now, but I can really recommend that be another resource for you. There's ways to get training in that. You don't, and it's a fantastic process. Levels of the training, so that's good.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what.
Institute for Music and Imagery. If you Google that, you'll see it's the integration of imagery and music. And you don't play live music, you use recording music, so you can do this without being in a musician. You have to really develop an understanding of music. Google Helen Bonny, she was the original music. She says constantly.
I want to leave you with a request that you advocate for your passion about this. There's a lot of resistance in the field of mental health, and a lot of intellectualizing going on, rationalizing. And so the more people who are vocal about this being useful, being integrated into those intellectual approaches, but still having, this sort of the humanity and the creativity of it, the better. The more people that have a voice about it, because I've had students in my classes who are in the class and have a thing they can use with their client, and I say, ask your supervisor, try to do it, and the supervisor's like, no, you're not allowed to do it, and that happened to you.
No, I have to tell you something.
Okay. So even at that level, at the student level, there's a lot, so carrying the message, being passionate about it, helps to feed the creative flow, and I think we have to all keep doing it. You're here because you obviously there's something about it that really interests you, and spread the excitement about it so it keeps going. Do you want to share that?
Yeah. So I took the art therapy class as soon as I could. I took it with Drena, and it was excellent. And this year, in my second year placement, I was placed in Elmhurst Hospital in an adult partial hospitalization unit, working with schizophrenics and serious mental illness. And they had an art therapist, and they lost the line for that job. Okay, so they had the whole closet filled with all these amazing supplies, and I became kind of the art therapist. I ran a weekly creative expression group. I wrote the curriculum for it, and I used most of what you taught me. So thank you.
Great for you.
Congratulations. It was a good experience.
Excellent.
So,
And they like you.
yeah,
they
right
wanted
away
you
they
to.
were like, go for it. It'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be great if they got that line from your therapist back home.
I love you. She's actually going back to school for MSW.
In the interest of time, Natalie, I'm just going to have you wrap up.
I kind of just, I'm so reminded of being here. Ultimately, I walked into the program that I'm in now, and Ruth was handing them dittos. And now it's trust falls and being blindfolded and music therapy and relaxation therapy, and it is that because I fought for it. Because otherwise, I would do blood tooth and nail to do traditional social work. So it does kind of work out in a lot of situations. So really don't give up. I swear.
And I want to thank all of you for presenting, for coming and giving back to us and pouring into the school. And thank you all for being here and attending this panel. Take care. Have a great day. Thank you.